So last time I had looked at sense of past. Whatever sensibilities we have regarding past, all of us seem to have these sensibilities. They may not be very cultured, or they may get cultured. That's a different thing. But all of us have some sense of past. It could be episodic past in our own memories, or it could be even cultural past and past like antiquity. So, sense of past everybody had all the time. Wherever there was a man, they had sense of past. Whichever geography, whichever period, there was sense of past in a man there. But something very different, unique had happened in the period 18th century, 19th century in Europe, which is a period of enlightenment after Renaissance. And in this period, there is a special kind of sense of past which was born, which we can call history, which was named history. It's not that people didn't write on events of past, but to do something called history as a modern discipline of evidentially looking at the sense of past along with evidence, scrutinizing the sensibilities people have about past in terms of evidence. That is a historical enterprise. This historical enterprise is born in late 18th century, 19th century, etc. And there is this surge of this historical sensibility around the idea of progress of man. Man is progress from animal to a sort of free spirit. This progress is a very big idea, and sense of past was woven around this progress. And then there is a phenomena which happened, political phenomena. And the political phenomena is about birth of nationalism. Nationalism is a kind of a glue people have among each other. So people can give up their life for nationalism, for nation. Like people who join army, forces, etc. They can give up their life to protect nation. It's a kind of glue which binds people. And to create this glue which binds people, there is a backward pressure to work out the glue among people. What makes India different from Pakistan or from Iraq or from Mongolia? These are various nations. So in the 18th century, the French nation, the Italian nation, the English nation, etc., they get formulated. And polity around the world is now, in 20th century, woven around nations. So there was non-European people also tried to discover nationhood. And these are called nation states. Nation states are born in the 19th century in Europe and rest of the world in 20th century. These are also called independence movements, national movements, etc., all across the world, including India. So there was this phenomena which happened where nationalism is constructed. For instance, Indian nationalism is, one can read Nehru's Discovery of India to see that there is as if these set of people have a shared past. They have a past, and their fate thus is glued to each other. This set of people who have a shared past, their fate is glued to each other. So, and that sensibility is called nation. This sensibility is very active, and all the wars in the 20th century have come out of this sense of nationhood. Wars mean all kind of 20th century is known for, will be known in say 27th century. It will be known as a warring period. Lots of war took place, 2 world wars took place, and many small wars took place. Most of these wars, in fact, one can say all of these wars are national wars. That is, people having a sense of past which differs from each other. And so if you sort of look into Hitler or look into even earlier Prussian Empire or Ottoman Empire, etc., which broke up in First World War, broke up something called the Ottoman and Prussian Empire. The Second World War broke up something called German nationalism. And the USSR was broken later on. So many big movements have happened around this nationalism. There is something strange about Indian sense of past, which was noted by the Europeans ever since 16th century. Indians are like most storytellers, and they don't care much about biographies, they don't care much about individual or men who have done great work, in the sense who have sort of won big victories, who have invented big things, who have thought big things. There isn't an account which can be, in which there is an indexing to space and time. Indexing to space and time means that you have recollection of an event which happened somewhere, some geographical region, and in some era. This indexical sort of sensibility about past is something which is very modern, and Indian tradition didn't have that kind of sensibility. So chronologies, eras, etc. is all messed up, and lots of debates about till today. When was something done? When was Ved written? When was, these are issues. When was Buddha born? Even this is a disputed idea. Most people say, historians, is around 600 BC, but many of the Buddhists from Thailand, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, and Tibet, China, etc., Japan, Buddhists think that he was born 1200 years ago, 1200 BC, before Christ. So there are disputes of these kinds, whole lot of them. And I tried to illustrate that in the end, one can imagine whatever my mental space we are working in, when we organize information from the past, we organize on a template, and these templates are images. So I contrasted 2 images. One was an image of Sphinx, which was greatly celebrated in Renaissance and Enlightenment, and another is a image of inverted tree, Aswatha. These 2 images are incompatible in some sense, and one can say around Sphinx are all the stories of progress, and around Aswatha is all the stories of which are mythic, which are timeless in some sense. In Aswatha, there is very difficult to conceive progress of time, whereas in Sphinx, one can create a progress in time. This has led into, within scholarship which is history, historical scholarship, even meta-scholarship on history, what really is history, is divided into 2 camps, even modern ones, which looks at history as a progress or which looks at history as a story. Very storytelling activity, which is narrative activity. So people can look at sense of past in 2 ways. One is the sense of past which has been constructed by the rulers of national rulers or national movements, and another is sense of past which is timeless, mythic kind of thing. Some things happened in past. So that between narrative, that whether history is born out of gossip of people, or it is born out of, you go around, look in the field, find out some ruins, find out some books, etc. Is history born out of that, or sense of past born out of gossip? People do talk about each other. So there is a narrativist foundation of history, and there is a scientific foundation of history. Within modern history, there is a debate whether history is all narration, or history is something to do with evidence, and people try to mix the two. That debate exists, but that debate has some reflection on story between, or a difference between Sphinx and Aswatha. I try to analyze this difference. What really is a difference between Itihasic sensibility and historical sensibility, and proposed a solution, proposed a sort of a thesis on what really is the difference between these two: the storytelling kind of history and history with evidence. This I tried to work on with two moves. One was the move that there must be something constant, something invariant when we look into sense of past. Because my concerns today, and concerns of somebody who is culturing sense of past, like a historian or a mythologist, that person, me, and actual objects of past. Actual objects of past could be anybody. It could be Ram Sita, or it could be Ashok, or it could be anybody in the past. And there must be something constant, and people usually give couple of proposals on what is constant, what is shared between these three parties. Some people feel is the reason which is shared between three parties. When historical event was occurring in the past, there was some rationality which is going on, reasoning which is going on. Contemporary time also there is a reasoning which is going on, and both the historian and the consumer of history, they have reason to share. So reason is a foundation for which is constant, which is trans-historically constant. Or some people may say, not really reason is human nature. I mean, in the past people thought, we also think. It's in our nature to think. It's in our nature to sort of look up kinship. It was in the nature of old people to look up kinship. So that is constant. Some other people say, no, the purpose is same. Purpose of man 10,000 years ago, a purpose of man today, all the purpose is same. So they organize historical information or around that. Or one can say that the reality is same then and now, etc. We may have different knowledge of those realities, but reality is same. So these are some anchors around which sense of past can be organized. These are invariants, and this is posited by people, these invariants, and from these invariants one can organize past. If we look into what kind of entities exist, entities from past, there are two kinds of entities. There are objects and there are forces. There are historical forces, forces which govern our life. They have come from past, such forces which govern our life. And then there are some objects in the past. It could be a person. Person is an object from past. So Buddha is a person who lived some time, but he is an object today. So there are some entities. When we imagine Buddha, we imagine in two ways. One is, when was he, where was he, when he spoke something. That is, we try to sort of index him to some era, to some place. That he was in some place called Kapilvastu or etc. And he went to Sarnath. These are places one can see. But if you go to these places, there may not be evidence that Buddha actually came there. There is some construction, stupas and some other things. Buddha is celebrated in these places, has been monumentalized in these places, but So in any way, Buddha can be indexed in real space-time, and there can be dispute whether you place him in 500 BC, 600 BC, or place him in 1200 BC. There can be such many evidences there. And there are other kind of entities. What really Buddha spoke? What did he want to do in the world? These are forceful things, which may be of significance today. What he's saying, that, I mean, if Buddha is saying that there is something called, one can get rid of all the sufferings which are there, this has significance today. These are vital objects. So Buddha can be decomposed into two objects. One which is indexical objects, relatable to space-time. Other are vital objects which sweep across space-time. So there can be something happening in, say, Kakatiya dynasty, which is even important today. Or there may be something which is happening in say, Magad, where Ashok lived, or Bimbusar lived, or Mauryans lived, which is significant today. For example, his chakra and his those three lions, they are significant today. Those are vital entities. They have been imported from the past for present and for building future. So there are two kinds of things, and a very important fact about these two, it's almost like theorem given, is that not all indexical objects are available to in present today. We don't have all indexical. New indexical objects can be discovered. You can find out some ruins and it becomes Harappa, which is not there in our memory. But we find a lot of indexical objects, so we have to account for that. Or there can be genetic archaeometry, which looks at genes and works out past archaeologically, or archaic times with genes. That is like, it's an indexical object, or carbon dating gives you indexical feature of the objects. And there can be new indexical entities found from the past, new personalities, new, one keeps finding this out, and so indexical objects are like that. One can discover them. Whereas vital objects are all present to, available to us seamlessly. We may highlight few vital objects, we may overlook few vital objects, but all of them are present today because somebody can pick up a dark from darkness, a light, some kind of vital object, and create a new phenomena. For instance, Ashok wasn't important in 18th century India, but in 20th century India, Ashok becomes important. It's just been resurrected out from past. Vital objects are like that. And then I went on to say, it's a very rational argument which I gave, what really are vital objects? I reduce vital objects to something called fiat. Fiat is a minimal vital object. A fiat is very significant because this lecture is going to deal with fiat. Fiat is what people do. A unit of doing in man is called fiat. A fiat has hidden in it intentions. Whatever we do, it has certain intentions in it, and it has some consequences. And consequences will be on other people. Whatever we do today, it will have consequences in future, in among different sites, different people. And this fiat is like that, and it has two mysterious things. We don't know what the consequences of our actions are. Consequences are mystery of fiat, and it's part of fiat, and also intentions. We impute intentions to each other. We sometimes think that a person did this because of this intention, which may be true or not true. So fiat is action along with intention and along with consequence. It's a mysterious entity, fiat. And fiats are something which conflict. What we do, what I do, what you do, there is a conflict. When conflicts are there, a solution as a fiat is created. and out of which we get bigger fiats and smaller fiats, great deeds and ordinary deeds. This distinction comes up is the great deeds which people look up in the past. This is a kind of summary of actual action into some kind of deeds which are great, and they can be called fiats, something great done in the past. And we may have different ideas of what is great in past. What is great in Pakistani past, or what is great in Indian past, or what is great in Tanzanian past, or Uruguay's past. These are great things are collected. And this collection of great things is called nationalisms in modern times. If vital objects are reducible in principle to human fiats, then if we can understand human fiats, maybe its structure, its logical form, etc., we can do some inferences out of this. I did one inference that where I brought in something called justice and injustice. When fiats conflict, whether this conflict is resolved satisfactorily or not, this sensibility is called justice. If the conflict perpetuates, it leads to suffering. One party keeps winning, other party keeps losing. If that happens unjustifiably, then it's called injustice. We have memories. We organize sense of past around two directions. I said earlier around image, we organize past, Sphinx and Aswatha. Now we can organize past, information of past, either around the account of justice or around the account of injustice. This distinction is important because whenever injustice occurs, there is a scrutiny which is unleashed, which is look at the evidence, whether something really happened. If somebody makes a claim that some injustice is done to me, people will look into the evidence whether that really happened. Organization of sense of past around injustice is very different from organization of past around justice, because if a justice claim is made, I mean that this Maryada Purushottam Ram did well, did great, and then there is doubt. This doubt is not evidential doubt, to look for evidence. This doubt is a moral doubt, whether it's true. For instance, Ram at somewhere in the middle of, after he comes back from Ayodhya and is running his empire from Ayodhya, he takes a vow that he will no longer inquire about well-being of Sita. He will not be inquisitive about where she is, what she is doing, what's happening to her. He took a vow like that when he asked Sita to leave Ayodhya. He take a vow like that. They say that Raghukul Reet Sada Chali Aaye, Pran Jaye Par Vachan Na Jaye. So whatever vow is taken should be adhered to in life. And when he asked Sita to go away from Ayodhya, he took a vow that wherever she is, whatever she is, he will not attend to it. He will not look. He will have no interest in information regarding her. And that's it. This vow he took. And this vow led to creation of a new land, which was outside Ayodhya, where Sita lived. It was Valmiki Ashram, where Sita lived and reared two children called Love Kush in that place. Ram knew nothing about it because of vow. It was outside his kingdom. So when his horse, he made a challenge that I am the best king. Anybody has a problem, you stop this horse. So symbolically, a horse is sent out. If there is any problem you have about my ruling or my government, you can bring that problem out, the horse will stop there. Otherwise, I am the best king. So he did that, and these two kids could stop the horse because they knew some fallacy in him. Now, if this is a story, this story, one doesn't do where exactly did Love Kush live, where did Sita go, how many miles she had to walk, what kind of transport she took. These kind of things, indexical concerns are not there about it. What are concerns are moral concerns here. So scrutiny about this kind of sensibility of past, mythic sensibility of past, is moral scrutiny. It's altogether different kind of method than a method which is like evidence-based. Injustice requires a support of evidence-based method. Building on justice requires a support of moral scrutiny. And there are two different methods altogether. So noting this, one could say, if you recall injustice from the past, then that enterprise is called history, because people have a warring sensibilities of past. Because warring sensibility means some injustice is done in past which has to be corrected. Nationalisms always have these injustices, something wrong done by Pakistan, and that's why India is at war with Pakistan. Something wrong done by Indians, that's why Pakistan is at war with India. There is some injustice which happened, whose solution is Pakistan, but it's a disputed solution. Pakistan, many Indians think that Pakistan is more of the kind of impressions of injustice which is done, on which Pakistan is acted, is not true. There is a sensibility that Muslim people, injustice is done to them structurally in India. So that's why you construct a different image of past than it is. So a lot of warring things come up in modern times because of injustice, sensibilities of injustice. These are historical sensibilities. Whereas a mythic thing, say myth of Gilgamesh in Nordic countries, or all kind of the Greek myths, they are all there where one reflects on moral aspect of things. So that I had asked originally a question, what really is sense of past, divided into two, and gave the foundation why they are different. What we will do is, in this lecture, we will look into Itihas a little more closely. What kind of rationality goes in storytelling? So I am going to move to something called a theory of drama. History is done, over. Today I am going to talk about what people gossip. What is the kind of gossips people do among each other, and and where are the moral concerns in that gossip? Because they are vital objects. Gossip is things we tell each other about, vital objects. This happened, that happened, oh he did this, that shouldn't have been done. These are vital objects, and we tell each other vital objects. All men do that. Whether you are in Timbuktu or anywhere, you would be gossiping. People tell each other about what are vitalities, what are significant things. All significant things are transacted, and they're transacted in billions all the time. So what we would do is we slowly move into art from here, and the filler is what really is something called a dramatic story. When we tell stories to each other, where is drama? How can we identify something called a drama in it? Or say Ramayana is a kind of drama, Mahabharata is a kind of drama, Gilgamesh is a kind of drama, all kind of dramas. Or if you look into Greek heroes and gods, and they're all in a dramatic situation. We will analyze what really is drama. And when we do that, we look into narration, Narrative is what people talk to each other. We look into a bit where aesthetics is born, and we look into justice, what is right. And that concern is always there when people tell stories to each other. Stories are something we tell each other about each other because, and then it is these stories which get made into novels, they get made into movies, they get made into, and they are retold in a very artistic way, aesthetic way. And people render them in aesthetic way, like movies, etc. And then the issues of justice and such things are reflected on that. We'll work at that. So looking into narrative can be divided into two portions. Classically, in Indian tradition, in the tradition of Natya Shastra. Natya Shastra is our kind of reflections and theorization on what is drama. Natak is drama, sab natak hai. All world is a natak, people say. And it's all pretenses everywhere in the world. This is a very popular saying that everything is a drama in the world. And because the sense of past which is itihasic and the sense which is purely kalpana. Kalpana is imagination, totally imaginary things. You may have some characters which seem to come from past, like Ram Sita are characters which seem to come from past. But a Batman is a character which doesn't have a past. It's been cut paste sort of various characters, and it's entirely imaginary character, kalpnik character. A difference between itihas and natya is that natya has objects which are not objects from past alone, but objects which are totally newly constructed. They are imaginary objects, like personalities, like a Batman is an entirely modern kind of construction. They are kalpnik. So there are two kind of narratives. They can be distinguished. Most often they will be mixed. That there will be some objects from past, like Ram Sita, and then they can be mixed up with certain imagination. And one can have totally fantastic objects. Totally fantastic objects. You can have an object which is like, say some fluid or something which is alive. You can have a very abstract object, very totally as if, and you have a discourse with them. You can think of a camera as a person. A surveillance camera falls down and is free. It has free will. It keeps running after you. Wherever you go, whatever you do, there is that surveillance camera which is like a person almost. And there's a movie saying about this that you may have seen, some of you, that kill this surveillance camera. Because one can now imagine a personality in a sort of some cameras which are existing, and this is totally imaginary. So in a drama, not only you have objects which are well known like Ram Sita are well known because they are from past. You may have objects which are totally new, surprising, fantastic, entirely sort of fantabulous kind of objects. So what we are going to do, if we look into theory of drama, we are going to move out of sense of past and look into something, imagination and past together. And when we do that, this movement is very seamless because the objects of itihas and the objects of imagination, these two objects are same. Imagination also deals with deeds and itihas also deals with deeds. These deeds are, even if you have Batman, I mean Batman does something. He fights bad forces and he can climb buildings and he can sort of do all kind of things. These are deeds of Batman. And there can be other imaginary figures which you construct. These figures turn out doing some deeds, some actions. That's the story. Story is how certain personalities do whatever deeds. Deeds is one thing which we spend time on. Actually, if we reflect on in a day, what do we do from morning to evening? You will be quite surprised that the engagement about deeds of others is the prime engagement we have. It's not that we are attending classes, we are sort of doing assignments or playing or gossiping, etc. We notice deeds of each other. That's our prime engagement. It's something every human being does, is to read deeds of each other all the time. And we spend maximally our mind, brain, energy, etc. in reading deeds of each other. And when we read deeds of each other, we sort of frame some kind of understandings of each other, understandings of what people do, what I should do. Because out of these understanding, I sort of work out what I should do. What should I do? Because there is a situation where one can find oneself where I don't know what to do. That kind of situations are very common. It can also become pathological situations, but these happen. And we have a presence of deeds of others. We try to either emulate them or we try to distance from them. You either sort of praise them and emulate those deeds, like deeds of heroes or role models, etc. You want to do something like that, what others did. Or you may want to distance yourself from some deeds. I will not do that deed because that deed is somewhat injurious to me, or it will be injurious to everybody. It's a bad deed. Or people, this deidic sensibility, like we had sense of past, now we are moving to sense of doing, a sense of deed and sense of fiats. What is happening all around us? What really did happen in Felicity? Next year you are going to do a Felicity. So what should be done next year? What was wrong with this? What could be better? What could be, so one does this analysis, is a deidic analysis. What happened and what should be done. This concern of what should be done brings in future into it. So not only past is there is a future also, and in between past and future, the present is imagination. We do imagination while living. We try to integrate past and future of a kind. In this integration, we make choices. Something right, something wrong, something to be done, something not to be done, something very tough, something very tiring, something very easy. We do all kind of these mulling. So the pet engagement of man actually is reading each other's deed. Just because we read each other's deed, we gossip. We tell each other things about each other. This gossiping, storytelling, is first activity we do after our prime engagement with deeds of each other. What has somebody done? That gives you a sense, a consequence, a sense in you, how to domesticate it, how to behave in future, etc. All these sensibilities come out of that. And this is storytelling. Like we can look at some few facts, few hard things in the sense of past, like difference between mythic and evidential history. One can also find few truths about the affairs of drama, affairs of storytelling. In storytelling, what do? We use language, we use gestures. Gestures is when stories become dramatic. They are called gestural, where you have actual drama being done. Like the one on 27, there is a drama of Premchand here. And this dramatic element is enacted out through gestures and other things, through actions of people, because these people who act out in drama, they have lent their body to the character who is doing. In drama, there is some character. That character requires a body, and the actors lend their body to that character, and that character does things through performances, etc. We will look into what are the elements which are involved in storytelling. Storytelling is very different from description, language. Language, you may have description, you may have computational language, etc., grammars, computable grammars, and natural language grammars. They are languages, but storytelling is though done in language and gesture, but it's different from language and gesture. In language, there is a lot of descriptive element. You know, outside there is a sun there, or eclipse is happening. That's a description of something outside. Language does this, but when we are interested in not just language and verbs and things like that, a summarization of actions in language, we are interested in lots of linguistic episodes, lots of gestural episodes which happen. Among them, read a unit called deed. What really happened? Now, Ashok renounced his warring altogether. He will never go to war. Non-violence, he took a vow of non-violence. This is a deed. And in between what Ashok spoke to who, etc., there are a million things happened there. That is irrelevant. So it's a very high level kind of sensibility where one looks at deeds and fiats. Each of us get even psychologically defined in terms of deeds and fiats we appreciate and we distance ourselves from. Much of our personality is carved out. A child has a personality which is like a mass. By doing deeds, by mulling over it, a child carves out one's own, sculpts one's own personality and character by the time you are old. You are so chiseling yourself. And this chiseling is done only on the basis of reading deeds. What you are, how you present yourself, you know, what you do, what is your prime engagement, how do you sort of spend time, what do you do, these kind of stuffs is actually chiseling yourself. And you decide that I will do this and that chisels you and brings out your personality. All of, in fact, purpose of education is to make young people attend to this process of chiseling oneself. To discover your own character is the purpose of education. What you are, you don't know, I don't know, is through engagement with the world I find that out. And then I can say what I contribute to the world. That one's character. So from very old times, this has been constructed as a prime purpose of education is not to acquire knowledge. Purpose of education is not merely to acquire knowledge, not merely to acquire skills. Purpose of real education is to discover one's own character. Now, stories are dealing with characters. There's so much of world which revolves around this Didic kind of sensibility. So much of our reality is around the sensibility of deeds, sense of deeds. What others do and what should I do? And this sense of deeds is different from sense of past. It may have entities from past in it. It may also need not have, it may have imaginary entities altogether. We'll look into this. Okay, this is a very old observation is found in by Bharat Natya Shastra. When we get engaged with the sense of deeds of each other, and when we do that, under what formal constraints is that done? And there is a image which Bharat Muni gave in Natya Shastra. I am just reproducing that in English here. The image is do you have water, anybody? Oh, thanks. Like we took a formal approach to history, looking at some formal elements, not going into any history, not into what Sikandar did with Porus, etc. We didn't go into that. We looked into formal aspect of past, sense of past. We look into formal aspect of sense of deeds. And there is a imagination. It's very imagination from vegetable kingdom. If you look at sprouting of seed into some fruit, etc., that there are seeds. What can be seeds? Seeds of interest. What kind of seeds do we sow in the world? If we look at deeds in terms of image of seeds and fruits, which is like when we say, if you do this, if you seed this doing, you will bear this fruit. If you don't lie, there will be goodness in the world. Fruit is a goodness. But you don't lie and still there are badness. No. So that's the mulling one does. So if I imagine that there is something called a seed and a fruit, a cycle of seed and fruit. You sow a seed, you sort of, it bears a fruit somewhere. All deeds can be put into a story. Deeds are sensibilities you get, lots of it in a day. If you really have to note down what all you noticed today, just in 1 hour about each other, or just in 5 minutes about each other, you will see it's full of deeds. Just 5-minute account of walking is very tough. Just 5 minutes account of what you notice about the world, about the deeds, what people do. It's quite lot thing. We may not notice it, but on reflection, it comes back, those notices. So if you have many fiats and many deeds, universe, a set of deeds and fiats. Imagine a set of deeds and fiats of all people. In IIIT, in Hyderabad, in India, in Asia, in world, one can imagine, abstract out a set of deeds. Maybe incomplete because all deeds are in making. At least past deeds will come in this set, abstract set. How do we relate these deeds to each other? Suppose we put a structure on top of it. The structure is that there is a seed and there is a fruit. Then one can put all these deeds into some kind of structure. What I am going to tell you is that every story ever told in the world and will ever be told in the world will have a structure given on this slide. It's a very strong claim. There is structure behind gossip. There is structure behind storytelling. The structure, what could be seed? A seed could be certain discord. There is a conflict of deed. Somebody does something, you feel bad. There is a discord which is coming. This discord must be resolved. Let me talk to that person to resolve it, or involve some other people to resolve that discord. Discord is a seed. And how it comes to, what happens to that discord in future is a story, are the fruits. So there could be certain aspiration, I want to do this. That is a seed. That aspiration is a seed. And the story, what happens to that seed in future towards its fruition. There can be variety of seeds and variety of fruitions. Each story ever told can be looked into like this, that there is seed fruition cycles in it. Very powerful thing, seed fruition cycles. So there can be a moral dilemma in the seed that is resolved in the conclusion. There can be a determination resolved in the seed that is achieved in the end. There can be a contradiction in the seed that is transcended on fruition. There can be an element of tragic in the seed that is brought to some amicable solution. So the universe of deeds, we organize that universe of deeds around certain structures. So which is Bij and Karya structure, and whatever narratives exist, whatever storytelling exists, once we notice deeds, whatever storytelling exists, it is always put in a structure from seed to fruition. There is no way. You can look up any story, what are elements which doesn't come into this structure. I'll talk about it. There are very interesting elements which don't come into this structure, but they are brought into the structure. You will find in nuances of films, nuances of plays, etc., some of these things playing. So narration is actually meant to account for fruition of seeds. Seeds are that in which there is a interest of others. People are interested in seeing some kind of moral dilemma they are interested in. They are interested in that story. Certain kind of resolve, what happens to that resolve, people are interested in that story. So those are stories which are told. It has 5 steps in it. These are actually 5 stages of drama also. In Aristotle, in Bharat, etc. These are in Greek thought as well as Indian thought, you have these structures. There is a seed which is impregnated. I am giving a very abstract structure now. We will come back to actual example of a story, how it fits in. That is, there is some kind of seed attempting to burst out into the world. Is impregnated kind of seed. And everybody has interest in this impregnation. That's why every story has a seed. So given a story, I can ask you, find out what the seed is in that story. Okay, because there is seed which is bursting out to come out. For instance, in say Tare Zameen Pe movie, there is a seed which is like a child you can do nothing about. I mean, the child has to suffer. I mean, there is some problem with the child, doesn't adjust at all in the world. And this adjustment with the world is a seed, which that movie resolves in the end. He is able to adjust with the world in the end. But this is impossible to do. That this guy has certain deficit, even deficit in his brain, and he is unable to associate things which normal people associate, and he sort of, because of that, he is isolated from the world, and it's impossible to bring him back to the world. So there is a seed of this impossibility in which we are interested, and then there is a solution given in the end that it's a good story told. Everybody is happy in the end. This guy is enrolled back into the world. So those are like seeds. And when the seeds get sown in reality, in the dominions of deeds, it is placed. If you place a dilemma or a discord in the dominion of deeds. Dominion of deeds is set of all deeds. If you do that, you will get a cluster of a kind. And this clustering is done, this seed tries to sow itself in the world, in those clusters, those deeds where the seed was involved. If you isolate that, for example, it's abstract exercise, I'm saying thought experiment. Isolate those deeds where this seed is involved. So looking at them, we find the way this seed is sown in the world. We will know how it is sown in the world. And there is a lot of difficulties in its plotting. So in a movie, say Tare Zameen Pe, for around 30 minutes, those difficulties are exposed, told. I mean, he just adjusts anywhere. And idea that seed is something is created in 20 minutes of that movie by doing various storytelling about him. And so there are great difficulties in finding way for this impregnation to reach conclusion. Then there are intricacies which are involved in his nourishment. I mean, it's impossible. He fights with his own brother, he fights with his mother, he's fighting with neighbors, he's fighting with sort of drivers, he's fighting with everything, school, his classmates. And I mean, there is lots of intricacies which come up. Mother wants him to be close to him, but she can do nothing. I mean, she has to leave him somewhere, in some sanatorium or somewhere where he would be taken care of. So there are a lot of intricacies which are happening. Mother wanting to keep him with him, but nothing can be done. He has to be left in some sanatorium. He can't live in a family because there is some problem with him. And that all kind of intricacies happen in the nourishment of that plant coming out of seed. This boy is just left dangling. And these intricacies make it almost impossible to solve it. There is a scene when the family is moving away from, after leaving him in a school in some hill, they're leaving him and he doesn't want to be left. Family doesn't want him to be left there, but they have to leave. I mean, there's a very tragic kind of scene where some people can be found weeping when that happens. And then there is a surprise in his maturing. Something like this teacher comes in. Amir Khan comes in as a teacher in that movie. That he will change everything. This surprise is something in the account of deeds. There is something sudden happens, and this will change the course of story. Story has reached a dead end. The seed has reached a dead end kind of thing. There is no way out. And then something, direction comes up. And then there is eventual fruition. Everybody is happy. Like he is inverted back, he's found his character, and he knows how to contribute to the world, and world knows how to take contribution from him. He becomes a painter, and he lives life happily. And his deficit is not seen as a problem. His deficit is seen as an asset. That is what you discover your character as. This structure, 5-membered structure, can be found in all stories. It can be found in various proportions. It can be found in different order. Sometimes there are movies where seed is exposed only towards end, just before the climax. In the beginning it's not told. Some other things are told. So you have to work that out. And this structure is found fairly all around. The structure is also found in mathematical imagination. In the Indian tradition, for instance, there is a book called Bij Ganit by Bhaskaracharya, which just gives this, that there is a mathematical problem and which is a which is sort of creating irritation to be solved, that's like a seed. And he calls it beach. Beach is a term for variable. The variable is not known. In the end, the variable has a value, fruit. So there also similar structure is seen. It's a pedagogic structure also. In teaching, this structure comes up, and in storytelling, this structure comes up. So one can, like there's a book by this Pathak, one chap, he tries to look into Itihas, Indian sensibility of past, with the help of this structure. We'll also do that, but this lecture is more about not history, but about what really is storytelling. This is a very important computational properties, this structure. The seed fusion structure is very significant. I've just rendered it in a different way. There is an unmanifested seed, there is sprouting of seed, there is obstruction to its growth, there is a way out, and there is a manifestation of fruition. The impregnated seed to eventual fruition, same thing written in different words. This has some properties. One of the properties is that it's found at lots of places in storytelling. When you have a story, you have an assignment also from this class, that is, you have to pick a story. Pick any story, small, big, whatever, and identify the structure in that story. You may not be, take some story in which this structure can't be found, that as if this structure is wrong, and try finding out this structure in that story. Is fairly universal structure. Is found in every culture, in every storytelling, and various modalities of storytelling, in performance, in gathas, and in writing, etc. Various mediums of storytelling one can find. It's very universal. One can get something out of some formal aspect of stories out of this. It also has something called internal necessity in it. That if there is a seed, it must go to fruition. Is there a seed which never goes to fruition? Can there be a seed which is never resolved? It has a certain, this structure has a necessity to move from seed to fruition. There is some force which takes you from the seed to its fruition. This force is a framework of writing a story. And this force is necessary. You can't leave halfway through. You have to fill it up. Otherwise stories are incomplete. And we look for their completion. So there is a force which is a necessary force in the structure. Anywhere you see necessities, that is of interest to science or interest to knowledge. Wherever you see necessity, it's on the necessity that we construct knowledge. So there is a necessity in it. There is also a closure. What is begun ends. A closure is a property in logic which says that if I do under this operation, this set of symbols are closed. Say numbers are closed under addition. The closure is a property. It closes. It's a good unit. And it is recursive. Recursive in a sense, within a story, there can be more stories. There can be stories within stories within stories within stories. There can be, this structure can be a structure of a entire story. It can be a structure of small portion of story. It can be a structure of, one can say about, say, Mahabharata. Mahabharata is one story, but the million stories happen inside. Within that stories also there are other stories which are happening. And one could see entire Mahabharata as a great nested graph of this structure. Okay, entire Mahabharata can be seen like that, a nested graph of this structure. we look into one example, maybe. Okay, even if this is a form of, it's only a form of story, because every story has this form tells us nothing about that story, in a sense what that story is. It's a common form among stories. Then what really is the content of stories? What kind of things we tell each other? These are constructed out of vital objects. And for example, if we look at one person, one individual, and keep watching what kind of deeds that individual did, as a child what he did, when he grew up what that person did, while studying what that person did, old age what that person did. If we cluster deeds of a person or of a particular individual, that is called personality of that person. That is called character of that person. The deeds of an individual, if we put them together, becomes character. One of the elements of stories is that there are characters in the stories. There is no story which doesn't have a character. A character need not be human. Character could be a box, like in that movie Wall-E. Huh? There is that box is a character. So it could be anything. There are characters. These characters have a very interesting feature, like we may die, but this persona doesn't die. Persona remains. People can recall. When you die, people recall he did this, he did that, or she did this, he did that. That person never dies. Person remains. Some of these persons fade away like the twinkling stars, fade away from the memory, and some of them are resurrected as Aitihasic personas. But there are these persons, individuals may die, persons never die, they wax and wane, differentially in different individuals in different times. Some persons populate our mind, other persons populate other person's mind. So if you are actually in a room, that room has many people. Every room has many people. These many people is the persons you are engaged with. So you go to sleep with lots of people, and these people are what you are engaged with. These are characters and persons. One can tamper with them, these persons and character, at one's will, because they are reconfigurable. We can even construct imaginary characters and live with them. All kind of things you can do. So these are some of the elements which are put on that structure are persons, are characters. What are the characters? A particular individual has a persona, that is fine. But suppose there is a person who is mother. Now there have been billions of mothers. Billions of mothers who have died. Billions of individual mothers have died. But whatever deeds they did while being mother, those deeds are personas. So there have been billions of personas which can be called mother. They had a role called motherhood, they did. Mothers of their personas, they coalesce and they make a character called what is mother? Motherhood. Motherhood is a character which is made out of the personas of billions of mothers who have died. A motherhood which is Indian, a motherhood which is in Timbuktu, a motherhood which is in Iceland are little different, because the deeds done are different. So the behavior of mother with child are different. If you sort of exposed to some say American mother-child would behave in a different way. Like the Indian mother can't, if the child is is weeping, the mother can't keep off the child. Whereas in Europe you will find that many times mothers keep them away, even they howl, let them howl. After 15 minutes they will stop and they will learn how to live in this world. So that's a different attitude. All kind of characters are constructed out of sediments of similar roles done in the past. They have been friends in the past. Billions of friends were there. They have all died. But whatever deeds they did as friends never dies. Those are vital objects. Those vital objects, billions of them put together, construct the idea of friendship. And you can put a demand on friendship. If you are a friend, you should not have done this. You should not have done that, because there is a character called friendship. So you have personas in storytelling. These are persons and their deeds. You have characters in storytelling, which are like sediments, heavy, or thousands of people died, labored to create that kind of character. Even imaginary characters, like a Batman, can be made by cut-paste of traits culled out from this eternal yesterday we have. We all live in yesterday, which is eternal. Whoever did whatever ever in the past is available to us as vital objects. These vital objects are deeds. Deeds never die. They are, whether they are useful to you today or not is a different issue. But they are all there. People can resurrect them, those deeds. Out of those deeds, in there you find personas. Say persona of Ashok, who was one individual who did this, then that, then that, then that, is a persona. And then you get what is a king. Character of a king you get, because Ashok was king, there were other kind of kings. They are foolish kings, there are all kind of kings. So they did all kind of vital objects of kinghood are with us, available with us. We get a character of that kind. They are persons, they are characters, and in no story, there doesn't exist a story which doesn't have character as one thing. Other is, there is no story which doesn't have more than one character. Even if you do miming, etc., there can be no story which has just one character. Because a story requires a situation. Situation is where you have more than one character, that creates a situation. Situation is a sight. When you walked from mess to this place, or one class to this place, there is a situation. There are many characters. There is no story which doesn't have situations. There is no story which doesn't have characters. There is no story which doesn't have persons in those characters, discharging a role of those characters, or multiple roles. A same person can be a brother, a father, a son. Many roles a same person may have. Stories negotiate deeds according to these roles, characters, personas, etc. There is no standalone character, and they get expressed only in the interaction with other characters. Thus, characters are never without situation. It's time almost. Okay, now let me quickly tell things. I spoke longer than what I should. I actually have 2 slides for this, more for this. A story has a skeleton. If you imagine a story having a skeleton, 2 nodes and edge. Every story is made out of fibers, which are 2 entities and a relation. Okay, 2 nodes and edge. A story can be seen like a graph, and okay, every story has a theme. It's some theme it deals with. A story which deals with love, a story which deals with vengeance, a story which deals with all kind of things. So a story also has a character, lots of characters. So this is a format, nodes and edge. This capital is edge. Story has this, that kind of thing. We will write entire story as nodes and edges. These edges are the relations between two entities. So a story has a theme, story has a character. Character can be of this type and that type. There are relations in a story, there are things in stories. There can be in a story a gun, which is, or a poison, which is very potent thing. A story has locations in there, all stories are locale, where situations are created. And story has phenomena, and the stories are narrated. Not only there are phenomena like it's raining, there's a car chase happening in the story and it's raining, it's dark. So you can have phenomena like this. You can have childbirth in the story, which is a phenomena. All kind of phenomena are there in stories, there are locations. These 6 things which are there in the story, every story has this. And there are two kind of, there are points of narrative, what we tell. We tell 2 things. We tell about events and we tell about considerations. Stories have events in it. Every story is a string of events. Like this Tare Zameen Pe is a string of event. It's also certain consideration which happen in audience head. So there are, has 2 types, events and considerations. I actually plan to look up one story for you from Mahabharata and then work that out. Here is the example, you can sort of pick it from the slide. A story, I'll tell the story, and which has been rendered into a set of points. A point is 2 nodes and edge. It's a story of somebody called Kach. Kach Devyani story. Kach is a son of Brahaspati, who is a teacher of gods. And Devyani is a daughter of Shukracharya, who is a teacher of Danavs. So it's about Danavs and Daityas. Devtas and Daityas, this story is about that. The children of 2 gurus of these 2 camps are Devyani and Kach. This man Shukracharya is very knowledgeable. And you know, one of the piece of technology which he has, knowledge he has, is that whenever somebody dies, if he wills, he can bring back that person. So he can bring a person out of death. That is kind of knowledge and technique he has. And Kach, a Devta, son of Brahaspati, he wants to learn this from him. So he goes to him and says, "Sir, make me a student." He said, "Okay, fine." I mean, he's happy that his rival's son has come to become a student. So he just takes him as a student. And as a student, he is excellent. He does all Shishya Dharma which are there as an ideal student. And everybody is sort of happy about it. But rest of the students, Danavs, they are not happy. But Devyani falls in love with him, and who is the daughter of Shukracharya. He is a student of Shukracharya. What they do is, when he goes for cow herding in the evening in the jungle, they kill him. Because Daityas feel that if he learns this, it's called Mritya Sanjeevani Vidya. Want to bring somebody dead back to life. So he wants to learn this from Shukracharya. But if gods learn this, then sort of certain advantage, the advantage which Danavs have, that will be lost. So they don't want gods to learn it, so they kill him. In the evening, Devyani says to his her father, "Where is he? Why didn't he come back?" He also has another piece of knowledge, another technology called Divya Drishti. He can see far off places like cameras. He can see that, see at a distance. So Devyani insists, "Please find out where is he." So he says, "Oh, he's dead. I mean, these guys killed him, these idiots killed him." So Devyani says, "Please bring him back to life." He's brought back into life. When he's brought back into life, Devani is happy, he's happy, everything is good, but Daityas are very upset. Why the hell should, once we killed him, he doesn't understand. He's so happy that his rival son has become his student that he doesn't understand what bad thing it will bring to Daityas. Then they plan next assassination. This time what they do is, when he has gone out into the jungle, they not only kill him, they burn him to ashes. And what they do is, they put this burnt ashes into the drinks of Shukracharya, drinks wine in the evening. So they mix it up in the drink and made him drink it. So then he can't bring back. If he brings him back to life, Shukracharya will die because he's in his stomach. So they do this kind of plotting, and then sort of again he doesn't come back in the evening. Devani again goes to father, where is he, why doesn't he come back, find out. And then he uses Divya Drashti, he finds out he's in his stomach. So what should he do? If he revives him, he will die. So he uses one distinction between any individual. Individual is not only body, but there is something called Sukshma Sharir, that is persona of that individual. To persona of Kutch, he teaches the intricate story. He teaches Mrit-Sanjeevani Vidya and tells him, okay, I am going to now use this Mrit-Sanjeevani Vidya on you and make you live. I will be dead, but then if you feel like, revive me also. And I'll do this. So he does that, he teaches him, and sort of he makes him back to, gives him body back, he dies. And Kutch, like a good student, he revives Shukracharya, everything is good. When everything is good, I mean, Daityas are very upset. All this, rest of the classmates are very upset with this. But then sort of Kutch has already graduated. I mean, he's got degree because he's learned what he came to learn. So if he's graduated out from there, he says, okay, I'm going back now. Devani is very upset. And Devani says, okay, why don't you marry me before you go? Take me along with you. So he says, sorry, I can't do that. You are like my sister because you are my guru's daughter. I consider you my sister. I never looked at you in any other way. And sorry, I can't marry you. Then she becomes very furious because she brought him back to life twice. You men are like that. You give them things and they forget. And so she was so furious that she gave a shrap to him. She gave a shrap to him that you are so proud, you have tricked us to learn this Vidya. You will never be able to use it. And there's a power in that shrap. Only that sharp sticks which has power in it. And you will never be able to use it. So Kutch says, okay, I will not use it, but at least I can teach it to others who can use it. That's the story. Now this story is exactly 46 points. In this thing, these are like characters are there. Kutch is a character, Shukracharya is character, Devani is character, Daitya, Brahaspati is character, Devtas are passive characters here, Daityas are also characters. There are relations here, there are things which are important like his surah. Ashes are things which are important. And locations are there, the ashram is there, location, setting is there. Various phenomena happen like death, etc., burning. These are phenomena which happen. Out of this, if we write a story, there is a minimal skeleton which a story must have. And then you can embellish it. A performer who does a movie on this story, for instance, will embellish it in many ways, but there is a minimal skeleton in the story. What is one of the elements of skeleton is Kutch desires to learn Mrit-Sanjeevani Vidya. Kutch approaches Shukracharya. Shukracharya accepts his as a student. Kutch excels as student. Kutch became favorite student of Shukracharya. Devyani fell in love with Kutch. These are two entities and relations are complex. I will read this 23 of them. These are events. Whites are events. Daitya has become jealous of, envious of Kutch. Daitya is afraid of his stealing. There is something called reification, where one point can be inserted as an entity in another point. We use that. And Daitya has killed Kutch. And Devyani inquires about Kutch. Shukracharya uses Divyadashti. Shukracharya feels injustice done to Kutch. Shukracharya uses Sanjini Vidya. Kutch brought back to life. Daitya is upset with this phenomena. Daitya has again killed Kutch. These events must occur. If any event is lost, the story is lost. Daitya has mixed this sura with these ashes. They burn him. Shukracharya drinks that thing. Devyani again asks for him. Shukracharya again uses Divyadashti. Shukracharya again feels injustice done to Kutch. Shukracharya uses Sanjini Vidya and brings back, he revives Shukracharya. Shukracharya teaches this, and Shukracharya, this is slightly nested. There is certain nesting. I want to tell you that nesting here. Nesting comes up because one of the entities, one of node is hypernode. One node is a point itself, is a node. A node itself is two nodes and edge. These are hypernodes here. Something is happening here in that kind. But you look at this. Maybe I'll spend some time next class, or we will have tutorial on this. And Kutch brought back to life. Shukracharya goes to death. Kutch uses Sanjini Vidya. Shukracharya is brought back to life. Kutch completes learning. Devyani proposes marriage. Kutch rejects that proposal. And Devyani feels betrayed. Betrayal is a very strong feeling. And Devyani gives a curse, and Kutch leaves ashram. These events must occur. So if a movie is done, you must have episodes on these events. Story is a string of events. This happened, that happened. And there are many considerations which give it a closure. Closure to that story. Closure to that story is that there is no entity in the story which doesn't have path to any other entity. That is, there is no dangling entity in the story that can be formally defined. So this is a today what I did was I have given you an example of a story and a structure in that story. Why this structure is a formal structure? Just by giving a structure, you don't tell a story. You have to really have elements. In the movies, this structure can be identified. In Mahabharata, it can be identified. It can be identified in a gossip. This is the content of, this is how narration is done. And narration has a base. And that base has 5, here also you can look at 5 stages. And that's a formal aspect of narration. A theory of drama is the one which is constructed on these formal notices. When you create a drama, you do exactly what is done here. And one can embellish it with all kind of things, with dresses, with situations, etc. All entities that occur in a story must occur in the metadata earlier, those 6 type of classes. And middle terms of these points, edges, if reasoned, will make story comprehensible by computer also. Entities can be related into a path. Whatever edge entities are occurring, nodes, one can make paths, variety of paths. How is Shukracharya related to say Kutch? There are many paths in it. It's a graph of relation. It's a graph of relation. One can do path attachment, one can do entity attachment and create strings. There are a variety of strings there. But the relation term, the edge are complex, like could take or to or cannot use. These are edges. if these edges become computable, reasonable, one can reason them, then the story is comprehended by a computer also. If some rationality can be built of edges, rationality can be built on paths, which are like graph search, etc. But so why I gave this example is that this is one of the prime thing about digital humanities. What people tell each other has a structure, can be mined, can be represented, can be done many things. So is one of the thing is of example of digital humanities also comes out of it. And that's it for today. I overshot today.